Just up the French Broad River from Asheville, North Carolina, lies Woodfin, a small Appalachian town. While typically quiet, this area was anything but when Hurricane Helene wreaked havoc on it last September. We recently covered some of the aftermath in Burnsville, North Carolina with Branch Civil, but if you haven't seen that video, here's a recap of what happened. Meteorologists predicted Hurricane Helene to be one of the worst storms to hit the southeastern U.S. in decades, making landfall in Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. Florida suffered significant damage, but the worst was yet to come. As Helene technically diminished in strength to only a tropical storm, it brought record rainfall to the already heavily saturated mountain region. 3 days of intense rain resulted in over 30 inches of water in much of the area, overwhelming every stream and river. As the historic floodwaters receded, countless people were missing and billions of dollars in infrastructure and home damage had occurred. However, the American people are remarkably resilient, with rebuilding happening immediately and continuing to this day.
Before we get too far into the video, some of you astute observers may notice that this is the same video we posted weeks ago, and it is because we had to take that video down due to some technical difficulties, I'll say. We ironed out the wrinkles, we got it back up, here it is. We're happy to have it back up. We added some additional pizzazz, so hopefully you enjoy it. And with that, let's get back to it. HG Rail is a rail services contractor based in the Southeast that is one of the hundreds of contractors working in the area to rebuild. Once finished, they'll have brought this historic rail line back to life with plenty of hard work and specialized equipment. But we'll get to that a little later. Now, let's get out to site. We started first thing where we met HG Rail's crew warming up machines for the day's work. But I wasn't at the Columbia River. I was hundreds of miles northeast.
What happened is this entire valley flooded. The river is probably 20 feet below us, just over that berm there. But the water was well above me. So when the water came, what direction was it going? It was going this way. When the water came, it was overflowing the riverbanks and flushing down this way, obviously covering this entire section of rail. When that water comes rushing through here, it takes whatever it wants to with it, and it undercut all of these ties, washed the ballast out, and made this entire piece of track, section of track, completely obsolete and incapable of carrying any kind of rail cars whatsoever. So that is what we're working on today. We are getting access back in here with the excavator. We're clearing brush, and we're ultimately going to be replacing these ties, replacing the rock underneath, and getting this rail back up to snuff. One of the key ingredients in a rail line are railroad ties. These are coming in from Virginia. We have 3,500 ties arriving today and over the next few days to get the rail line back up to snuff. All right, we've got the material coming in over there. We're gonna get down to the excavator to see some of the action. But before we do, let's review the anatomy of a railroad track.
Railroad tracks have four main components: rails, ties, ballast, and fasteners and spikes. From the ground up, the ballast is composed of rocks roughly a few inches each. It's a specialized material typically made from quartz, limestone, or granite that locks together once placed. The material serves as a strong foundation for the weight of trains above. Atop the ballast are the ties, typically treated wood, which spread the weight of the rail above and provide shock absorption. Next, we have the rails, made from high-strength steel roughly the same way since the 19th century. Many of the rails on this site are from the early 1900s, proving how enduring these steel beams can be. Finally, the fourth component is the spikes and fasteners, which join the rails to each tie, creating the finished and iconic railroad track. Now that we've graduated Railroad 101, let's get back to the work.
All right, so how, obviously this is messed up, how are you guys gonna make it not messed up?
So, starting with, we're gonna put an earthen dam in here, just to keep the rock from running out. And then we'll come in and spot new ties, which means put new ties in where some of the bad locations are. We'll probably go about every fourth tie. Some places we'll try to get as many as we can to get it shored up. And then we'll come in here with a tamping machine and tamp rock under the ties and then broom it and get it fixed up.
But you keep the existing rail, you keep it as is, you don't have to do a whole lot to
Yeah,
it?
so it's not kinked, it's not bent. You know, some of this rail's probably turn of the century 1900s. That one's dated 1920.
Yeah.
It's seen a lot in its lifetime, right? It's over 100 years old, 104 years old. So you see that all over the country. The rail's pretty resilient, but the tie's not so much. I mean, it's organic wood, it rots, it disintegrates, and a lot of these ties are in bad shape. It is. The fortunate thing is, this is not a freight line. It was in its lifetime, but right now it's a little scenic railroad where they take passengers for little rides on motor cars. So the weight's not an issue for the ties. Once we get some rock in here and get it tamped up, it'll hold pretty well. It'll do what it needs to do.
So if this was freight, you'd have to replace all these ties?
Well, again, there is a certain formula. There's a certain number, one tie every 3 ties. Depends on what, it depends on what class track it is, depending on the speed, right?
I got you.
Some railroads come in and replace every tie, but if you do that, if you think about it, if you come in here and replace every tie at the same time, the problem you create down the road 7-8 years, all your ties are going bad at the same time. That's why you alternate them out every 3 ties, every 4 ties, and then you can come back in and spot them, and it spreads your capital budget out over a long time.
I got you.
Yep.
And can you explain how that machine's different from your typical 325?
Yeah, so I mean, in all actuality, it's a standard Cat 325 zero swing, which means the counterweight's tucked in on it, and you can use that to get up around rail cars. Yep. The difference with that machine is it's a McAllister machine. It has a high rail gear system on it that allows the excavator to tram down the rail. It picks the excavator up, runs at a pretty good speed. It has its own braking system, which makes us, we're able to traverse, 20, 30 miles at a time if we need to during storm situations. Helene's, caused a lot of devastation throughout Southeast and Georgia, Florida. We started out just kind of following behind it, and we're clearing 40 and 50 miles worth of railroad where just hundreds, thousands of trees were down. We couldn't have done it without these guys. I mean, they definitely make the difference, getting in there and cleaning up, getting the track processed quick, getting the trees out of the way.
Is the top part there, is that a cooling pack for the high rail system? Like what are
It is.
Fans?
Yep. So on top of that machine, it's a radiator essentially with some high-speed fans.
Okay.
And it's strictly for the high rail gear.
That's
what you'll see, man, those things get real hot. They're moving a lot of volume of fluid to propel it down the track. That machine, run, I think it's 18, 20 miles an hour. Some of the bigger machines will get on down the rail pretty quick. So a lot of weight. You think about, over 78,000 pounds on that machine. So it's having to do some work, tractive work to get it down the track.
Yeah. Right on. Well, we'll leave you to it then.
Okay, cool.
Changing mags. No. Right, phase 2 of getting this line back open is clearing the debris off of the line. So not only are we putting new rock and ties down the way where it's been washed out, where it hasn't been washed out has a lot of tree cover. There are probably tens of thousands of downed trees in this area because of the winds and the flooding. When the water percolates the ground, it softens it up. That wind just knocked those trees over, and the water itself knocked a lot of trees over. So they have the excavator, same one that they were using down there, but they have activated the high rail setup, so it is on those 4 steel wheels instead of the tracks. And then we have a high rail truck with a crane to gather the wood and bring it out of here and clean up this section of railway. Beyond the high rail excavator, we've got this truck here with a grabber on the back end. He's able to use that grabber to clean up some of the debris resting along the track. The truck is high rail configuration, but it's a little bit different than the excavator. The excavator high rail is powered on its own, so it can lift itself up, get the tracks out of the way, and drive itself on those 4 steel wheels. This truck also has 4 steel wheels, but what drives it along are the rear tires. The tires rest, the rear inner tires rest on the steel track and propel that truck back or forward as the guy in the front drives it along. We have been bringing in rock all day with the tri-axles. We finally have a big enough pile to start distributing it along the line where everything was washed out. So we've got the 950. The 950 is going to be loading this truck here with rock. It's also a high rail truck, high rail dump truck. And then from there, we'll back that down the line to wherever it starts to be washed out, and we'll start working our way that way, filling in the holes with the rocks. Nice. An exciting development. The whole bed can tilt, spin. So they have the chains, the tailgates chained to either side so they can control the amount of material flowing out. Bye-bye. Not very good. Oh yeah, we're on audio. So I have taken command of the 950 loader. I am not very good on loader, as you can tell by my half bucket, but I can run it, make it go back and forth, pick up something. So we're gonna load the tilty spinny truck with another load of gravel and keep this job moving. Just doing what I do, making production happen.
Sadly, due to scheduling, we did not see the specialized equipment in action the first day we visited. However, Jack and TJ drove back out the week after to catch it all. Since our first visit, HG crews have made serious progress in bringing the line back to life. They removed tons of debris across and around the line and cleared areas for work access. Next, they refastened ties that the floodwaters damaged or loosened but didn't need replacing. A small rail car grabbed each of the rails with a hydraulic lift and slid plates underneath, allowing workers to fall behind with spikes and brute force to bring everything back together. Now for the damaged tie removal process. First, HG rail crews had to remove the damaged ties and replace large volumes of ballast that the flooding washed away. Next, they laid out new ties along the rail, preparing for the tie machine. The tie machine then grabs each wooden tie and shoves them repeatedly into position until they're just right amongst the ballast. Rail crews used to do this by hand, so it's amazing watching a machine make it all happen so fast. And finally, a spike machine secures each tie to the rails, finishing the replacement process. Rinse and repeat hundreds and thousands of times, and we have a finished rail line. Thank you to HG for having us out today. I hope you enjoyed checking out a little bit of railroad work. Hopefully there's much more in the future, and we'll see you next time. Stay dirty.